When I was about 11 or 12, I went with my friend from Boy Scouts on a bicycle trip. It lasted all day and was the longest bike ride we had ever taken. We rode all the way downtown to the banks of the Mississippi. By that time, we were hungry. On the riverbank was a fancy hotel with an expensive restaurant on the top of it. I had always dreamed of eating there. It was way beyond our means, so I had, of course, never been inside. The two of us parked our bikes outside the hotel and began to count our pennies and nickels. We didn't count any dimes. Dimes were hard to come by in those days, and besides, as good Boy Scouts, we knew that you always had to keep a dime in your pocket for an emergency phone call. We discovered we didn't have much in pennies and nickels and probably couldn't afford very much. But we decided to risk it. We thought, well, we can't get much to eat, but surely they must have something we can afford. So, dressed just as we were, we went up to the top of that hotel and into the fancy restaurant. Sure enough, there was a gorgeous view of the downtown skyline and the Mississippi River. We could see into the next state of Illinois. The view was breathtaking, but so were the people, all dressed so nicely, obviously from the opposite side of the tracks from where we were from. They just looked at us coming onto their turf. We sat down at a table and opened the menu, and we were shocked to see the prices. Once again, we got out our pennies and nickels, and we discovered that we could indeed order something. 1 cup of soup with 2 spoons. That didn't really satisfy our hunger. But then we noticed that the people at the table next to us had finished. They got up and went home. But they had left some scraps on their plates. So before the busboy could clear away the plates, we beat him to it. We took the scraps from their plates and put it on our own, and we enjoyed those morsels from the plates of that rich family. The busboy saw us and smiled. As he gathered the plates from the other tables, he would come by our table very slowly and allow us to grab the scraps from his tray. We enjoyed a pretty good meal that day off the scraps of others. Today we hear the story of another boy outside the gates. His name was Lazarus. He too was longing to fill his stomach with the scraps from the table of the rich man inside. In the world of today, there are many Lazaruses just longing for little crumbs. What are those crumbs of Lazarus? Over 100 years ago, there lived a man in Europe by the name of Dr. Albert Schweitzer. He was a brilliant man and very religious, with a degree in music, a degree in medicine, a degree in theology. One day, Dr. Schweitzer went to church and heard a sermon preached on the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. This sermon changed his whole life. He listened to the story of Lazarus longing for the crumbs, and he decided that, for him at any rate, the rich man was the European society he was living in, and the poor man, Lazarus, was Africa, starving and in need of so much at that time. So Dr. Schweitzer decided then and there to dedicate the rest of his life to alleviating that need, that hunger. He went to Central Africa and in 1913 founded the famous Albert Schweitzer Hospital for the Poor, a hospital that is still functioning and flourishing to this day. What are the crumbs of Lazarus? What is it that Lazarus is so longing for? For Dr. Schweitzer, the answer was easy. It was food and medical supplies. But that's the easy thing. There are many Lazaruses among us today, longing not so much for food, but much more for understanding and love, looking for just a tiny morsel of that. As Mother Teresa teaches, the hunger for love is much more difficult to remove than the hunger for bread. Most of us go through life feeling like Lazarus, feeling that we are just outside the gates, not quite an insider, not quite accepted. Most of us long for little crumbs of understanding and love, and how we cherish those morsels when they fall our way. At the end, we too, like Lazarus, find that these crumbs, these morsels, these little encounters with love have made all the difference. To our amazement, we discover that we are the ones who have experienced the fullness of life and love precisely because of our hunger and appreciation for it, while those inside the gates who seem to have everything are the ones left empty. As the old Puritan divine Benjamin Whichcote used to say, "None are so empty as those who are full of themselves." There is no such thing as a small crumb of love, not in the hand of a Lazarus. In the hands of a Lazarus, in the hands of a soul who truly seeks love and has the gift of recognizing it, the tiniest morsel becomes an infinitely great manifestation of love, big enough to fill the hands, the heart, the soul, big enough to share generously with all. Let us cherish the morsels of love that come our way, and in our hands allow that love to transform the world.